Hi friends, in this video we are going to study Advanced Project Management, its tools and techniques, part 1. We will be studying about the different types of project management constraints. So far, we have studied mainly about the various technical concepts of project management. Once again, to summarize, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to a broad range of activities in order to meet the requirements of a particular project. We have seen the 5 project life cycle phases, that is, initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and control, and the closing process. In each of these phases, you are now able to define what work must be accomplished, what deliverables are generated in each phase, who are involved, that is, the stakeholders, and how to control and approve each of these phases. So, what exactly does advanced project management now involve? The advanced theory is more focused on establishing a leadership approach. A project manager is a leader like figure in the team and hence has a certain influence on its team members. He should be effective in leadership, communication, and team development skills, as well as adept with managing conflicts, negotiating, as well as identifying any bottlenecks or constraints in the process and help them solve so that the project is completed on time and within the cost. Advanced project management also means creating a powerful and comprehensive process for managing the projects by drawing an array of alternatives and perspectives to develop an approach that works. It also means to effectively plan and implement all uncertainties to achieve the project goals. The main project management skills that are required for a project manager, as published in 2019, were leadership, communication, scope management, stakeholder, time, risk, resource, cost, quality, procurement, integration, management, and being a subject matter expert. Apart from this, you are also required to have various soft skills, interpersonal skills, assessment skills, marketing skills, and progress reporting skills, which should all come up in your resume while applying for any project manager's job. The various tools and techniques that are used by project managers in order to manage any project effectively. So, the tools mentioned are the WBS Grand Chart Logic Networks, the feedback mechanism, SMART goals, project objectives, quality management tools, project processes from start to finish. The various techniques used in project management are the planning software, estimation and appropriate costs, taking out risks, the Pareto analysis, 80-20 rule, pest analysis, SWOT analysis, delegation of responsibilities, etc. Critical path method is one of the most important techniques that is used in project management. The CPM means the critical path, which is the longest path and determines the entire project duration. That is the shortest possible time to complete the project. However, this process that we have studied in previous chapters has certain limitations. CPM operates on the assumptions that there is a precise known time that each activity in the project will take. But it may not be true in the real practice. That is, when you are scheduling, you make certain types of assumptions, and it is always created in a way that the project will succeed if all things fall in place. However, that is never true. There can be many unknown risks, uncertainties that come up while executing. The CPM time estimates are not based on statistical analysis. Unlike PERT, wherein we consider a probabilistic approach of taking three time estimates, these duration are not based off any analysis. Also, it cannot be used as a controlling device for the simple reason that any change introduced will change the entire structure of network. In other words, CPM is not a dynamic controlling device. So how does constraints actually exploit the most commonly used critical path method? Let us look at the common project management constraints. These are unclear objectives and goals set by the client or the management, lack of senior management supports, lack of effective project integration, inadequate fundings, change in business priorities, original assumptions becoming invalid, ineffective team, and lack of the communication process. These are some of the major reasons that even large projects in which various experts are involved fail because they tend to forget about these very common constraints and put a negligent eye on achieving these goals. However, we all briefly know that the triple constraints of project management are summarized as time, cost, and scope, all of which is majorly determined by quality in the center. So, constraint in project management is any restriction that defines a project's limitations. For example, it is the limit of what the project is expected to accomplish. For example, increasing the scope of the project is likely to require more time as well as money. So, these triple constraints form the project management triangle. If you pick up any side of this triangle and tend to pinch it, that is, if you select the cost side and try to squeeze the cost, there will be an automatic impact on time and scope being getting squeezed. In case the time portion is pushed inside, the cost will tend to increase on the other side. And in all of this, if you take lesser time, the quality portion in the center, if you squeeze the time, the quality is going to suffer. If you reduce the cost, once again, the quality will suffer. However, in today's advanced construction project management system, the three constraints are in its own insufficient to describe the larger view of constraints which are prevalent in the 10 knowledge areas. Hence, we must remember now the six types of constraints in a project. Scope, time, and cost are the three, while risk, resources, and quality are additional three types of constraints which are in response to client or customer satisfaction. In risk constraint, we tend to analyze what can go wrong and what can be done about it. In resources, we try to identify who and what is required to do the work. While in quality, how close the outcome matches the customer expectations. So these six constraints can be represented in forms of the double triangle diagram. So the double triangle diagram of project constraints sometimes measures the client satisfaction as well as team satisfaction as two of the three other prongs on the new triangle along with the processes. This notion can especially be helpful when delivering solutions to a client. Impact on scope, time, and cost may have an impact on the quality. Imagine pinching any side of the triangle that will happen. What will happen to other sides of it? They get stretched, and the inner area of the triangle gets squeaked. All the six constraints thus tend to influence each other, in that any one is going to get affected, all others will also respond similarly. Constraints are also called as bottlenecks. Hence, we are introducing the term bottlenecking, which refers to a phenomenon where the performance or capacity of an entire system is limited by a single or small number of components or resources. Therefore, it is the task of a project manager to identify such kinds of bottlenecks and eliminate them in the process. For example, one RA bill can only be raised in a month as per contract. So, this is a contract condition which becomes the bottleneck for fund flows. You wish to have done lot of work, but you can only raise one RA bill and you have to wait till the end of the next month to raise the next RA bill. Similarly, the payment against the RA bill will be released only after 1 month of submission of the RA bill. This is also a bottleneck, or RA bill cannot be released until two more engineers are deployed. This is also contract condition that might become a bottleneck for the project. Similarly, certain important payments to vendors which leads to their non-performance and thus directly affects critical activities can also be called as bottlenecks or constraints. Apart from the six major constraints that we have studied so far, there are 12 other constraints to be looked after in a project. These are the organizational constraints, procurement constraints, design constraints, technical constraints, economic constraints, management constraint, legal constraint, environmental constraint, time constraint, social constraint, third parties, and assumptions in project constraint. Each of these have been briefly mentioned. The organization constraint is the project team limitation. In procurement constraint, the limitation of good experienced contractors or laborers available in the region is a constraint. Design constraints can be related to the available technology, plant material, labor, so on, or also in the early stages of design itself due to certain laws or regulations of the zoning area, there is a design constraint imposed. Technical constraints might involve regarding the construction activities. For example, the type of soil will often constrain you, the type of foundation you choose. The type of formwork will be influenced by the design. That will also directly affect the cost. While the economic constraint is more related to the project budget, if the budget is inadequate or not allocated properly, it will have a negative impact on the success of the project in terms of its quality, safety, functionality, and performance. The management constraint will include the different kinds of rules and regulations that are brought up by them, their working practices, resource allocation for the project, the shift patterns, safety procedures implemented, etc. There could also be legal constraints, which refers to the various regulations imposed by the government, the employment laws, building regulations, environmental requirements, and so on. There can also be environmental constraints, which is related to geographical locations, its geological features, hazardous materials in the area, air pollution, vibration, traffic, etc., which will overlap with your legal constraints, and you have to perform an analysis, the environmental impact analysis. Time constraints, social constraints include factors that may arise as a result of wider interest in or opposition to a particular project. Usually, projects which are funded using public money are subjected to social constraints. For example, metro projects, Commonwealth Games Stadium, etc. Third parties. Third parties are often a major constraint on which we do not have control. There is no project where a third party is not involved. Hence, it is important to keep an eye on identifying the impacts, understanding it, quantifying, and managing these constraints. Also, project assumption might become a major constraint during execution. In the planning phase, various factors are considered to be true, real, or certainly often without any proof or demonstration. Sometimes few assumptions come out to be true and some to be completely false. This will lead to rework, and if major differences occur, it may significantly impact the project schedule. Thank you.